Hello and welcome to an all new episode of the Up the Coast podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tyler, and we're going to do a two-parter here. In the second part, we're going to knock out the final game preview of the first round, talk about Wright State in Virginia with Giovanni Mosheri, the host of the Jomo Show, covering Horizon League basketball. We'll get into that later, but to start things off, he is the great Tristan Freeman of Busting Brackets. We got three games to recap here. And Tristan, I think a lot of ACC fans got reasons to complain coming out of today, but the one thing we cannot complain about is, God, were all three of these games interesting.
Yeah, the results fascinating. Considering that we thought, you assume that one of them was going to be in the bag, and turns out another one, the two others were supposed to be, and comebacks galore. But mixed bag for the ACC. But I think if you're someone who wants the conference to succeed, you ideally got the right result.
Yeah, so we'll just go chronological order here because we kicked off the day with Louisville in South Florida, and I really want to kind of just simplify this game. Louisville up 22. South Florida climbs back. They get it as low as 4. They could never crack that threshold. That's what they ended up losing by. It's a 52-point second half for the Bulls, but I feel like why Louisville won can be defined down to just one comparison stat. Isaac McNeely went 7 of 10 from 3, and every South Florida player not named Joseph Pinion went 0 of 19. And South Florida was probably the better team today, but when you outshoot your opponent that badly, you're going to win.
Yeah, South Florida was a team that, solid, solid shooting unit, but, Wes Ennis, their star player, went 2 of 15 and 0 of 11 from deep. How many times is that going to happen? Other than Joseph Pinion, who needed 25 shots to begin with, they just couldn't get much scoring. And, Louisville ultimately was able to shoot their way to victory, despite the fact that they had 22 turnovers. And, you didn't get much out of anyone not named Carnwell McNeely. So you lucked out with the Bulls not shooting well, because if they were just an average shooting team, then they probably find a way to win this. But look, if you're missing your best player, Mikael Brown, you can't complain too much. You just gotta take the win in advance.
Yeah, I mean, Louisville was good kind of around the game today, other than just the horrific turnover numbers, which we could probably spend 15 minutes just going on about the fact that as South Florida was charging back there in the second half, Louisville flat out just could not dribble the ball up the court. Like, just over and over again, guys were getting trapped and turning it over. There was that horrific 10-second call where Kobe Rogers was at the opposing foul line 9 seconds in and just literally didn't know it was coming. I mean, this was an utter disaster and the kind of thing that I think Louisville fans would have talked about for the next 8 months if they had lost the game.
Yeah, and look, Cody Rogers gave you really good minutes. You got 5 assists from him, 6 rebounds off the bench. Like he was fine. And Adrian Woolley, who I think you some people could wonder if he is the next lead guard for them. He really struggled, but in the end, again, you just had just enough, and they needed that huge lead, because if they were only up 10 at a certain point when South Florida decided to put the pressure on, there's a chance that Louisville does completely fall, completely suffer to comeback defeat as another ACC team did later on.
Yeah, well, one of the keys we talked about in the game preview, South Florida center Isaiah Nelson, it turns out he was spectacular. The Louisville Bigs couldn't deal with him at all. 22 points, 9 rebounds, although Sinandra Frew did out rebound him 10-9 in this one. But I think we did know that even if Nelson had a great game, Louisville had a chance to still win this anyway. And Conwell outplaying Ennis so severely. And think about Ennis taking that frustration flagrant foul in the first half when that game was going so badly for them. And McNeely having his best game in a Louisville jersey. I feel like that was what pushed them through. But anything else you think I'm missing on this game?
No, other than the fact that also, they Louisville missed 11 free throws, and that nearly came back to haunt them as well. And, this is going to be the rotation that they use going up against Michigan State coming up, and they're going to have to be able to shoot just as well, if not even better. And while Michigan State is not an elite 3-point shooting team, they're certainly not going to take 33 attempts. So, a lot of things for them to work on. But again, they've shown that they can't shoot. And Isaac McNeely, who may not have the ideal season after transfer from Virginia, he showed in this game that, he is still a very capable high major player who can shoot teams in the games.
Yeah, he was just awesome today, and Louisville can at least hang their hat on that. But the other afternoon game, figured this might be like last year's Duke 116 game. It was quite the opposite. Siena made us have to watch every painful second of this one. The Saints were up 11 at the half. The first time a 16 seed has led by double digits at halftime in the history of the NCAA tournament. We had what I now assume is future Syracuse head coach Jerry McNamara playing his starters for all but 5 seconds of the game. He brought in a bench player to try to commit an intentional foul on the final possession. Just a quick side note, if Syracuse fans and boosters want to get McNamara this job that he doesn't have the resume for yet, him hanging tough with Duke might be enough to push it over the edge. But this was, this was an interesting one from the fact that Siena put a smackdown on Duke in the first half in a way that we have literally not seen one single team, not North Carolina, not Virginia, not Michigan State, not Texas Tech, no one, not Florida. No one has played this good of a first half against Duke all year. The Saints were up 13 at one point. That's the Blue Devils' largest deficit of the season. This, two starters out or not, this was crazy how well Siena was playing.
Yeah, and we can't even use the two starters being out because Duke just won the ACC tournament with those two starters out. So if you can beat the likes of Virginia and everyone else without them, and but by all in all comfortably, what they did in the first half against Siena was just unacceptable. And look, I think Malik Brown sort of hinted at it that they weren't necessarily taking them all the way seriously, but you're not a very deep team yourself. And if some of your guys struggle, then all of a sudden you're relying on just a couple of guys to go off. And their defense, allowing some of those threes, some of those were tough shots by Siena, but ultimately, credit to the Saints for really putting them on them and needing basically a 7-minute drought in the second half to come back and take the lead. Because if Siena, just a little bit better in the second half, they probably find a way to win this game.
Yeah, they sealed off every chance Duke had for extra points in that first half. They surrendered 0 fast break points. I don't think anyone has done that against a team this athletic, maybe in the history of college basketball. They only gave up 4 second chance points. They just kept Duke away from any way they could have hurt them. The Blue Devils shot 13% from 3 in that first half, and you just kind of started to see about 10 minutes in there to that second half as the Siena legs got heavy. Duke started to get a couple of runouts. All of a sudden, Cam Boozer was getting every single rebound in sight, and he had a poor offensive game again, but he was awesome on the glass, kind of reminiscent of that ACC title game the other day. And it really the seminal moment of this game for me. It felt like a turning point the second it happened. Siena's up 13. There's a little over 10 minutes to go. They miss a dunk, get the offensive rebound, miss the putback dunk, and Isaiah Evans ends up with a breakaway slam of his own. It was their first fast break points of the game. And from that moment on, it just felt like Siena was just trying to buy borrowed time.
Yeah, and look, their star player Gavin Doty went 7 of 20 from the field, 3 of 12 from deep. Effectively only playing 5 players, shooting under 40% from the field. Their numbers sort of make it feel like they should have been blown out. But Duke didn't really get much outside of the Boozer brothers. Isaiah Evans, 6 of 14, But ultimately, it was Caden who's the MVP. Not only 19 points, 5 assists, and 0 turnovers, playing basically the entire game, but it was him scoring the buckets in the first half to even keep it competitive. Because it could have easily been worse than an 11-point deficit. And with Caleb Foster out, he's basically been playing the entire game as the lead point guard for the Blue Devils, and he's been fantastic after what was a slow start and sort of sharing duties. If he's a guy that can give you 15 points and 5 assists and controlling the game, then all of a sudden Duke can win without Caleb Foster. Nabongwa is a separate issue, but at least in the backcourt, Caden Boozer coming into his own is a very big storyline, a positive one for the Blue Devils if he's playing anywhere near his brother's level.
Yeah, I mean, the Boozer twins were undoubtedly Duke's two best players today. I can't give either of them MVP because I'm already sick of the commercials. I'm very jealous of you that you get to go to games on Friday and don't have to see them shielding their phone or whatever that stupid thing is, because it was too much over the last 12 hours. But the best player in this game was Francis Folafak on Siena, who honestly looked better than about half the ACC starting bigs I watched this year. He was fantastic. He was just continually dragging Brown and Boozer into the post. They were struggling to keep this guy away from the rim, and then Brendan Coyle, who went 4 for 9 from three in this game, and it just felt like all four of them came at significant moments for Siena. He missed a couple late, and that was kind of just the story of this game. If it was going 35 minutes, Siena very well may have won this game, but it was just too much time for those tired guys, and Duke just kind of wore them out. Their six were just so much better prepared to play 40 full minutes than Siena's five.
Yeah, and look, and you mentioned that this is an ACC pod. You know, considering the reports that some coaches are turning down Syracuse, and there's talks behind the scenes that they may not be in the greatest level of stability. Why not get Jerry McNamara? I mean, taking the Saints to a tournament, giving Duke a tougher fight than Syracuse has in the past few years. Like, why not? I know there's some Syracuse fans who don't necessarily want to stay in the Bayheim tree, but if those outside the tree don't, hold the program in high regards, and you have a candidate that does, then why not take one more swing at it and see how it goes? Because if nothing else, McNamara will want to make Syracuse back into a top tier ACC program.
I mean, he's not qualified for the job yet, but after today, I feel like he's going to get it. Like, that's just where I feel like Syracuse is going to go. But that's a fascinating discussion for next week, probably. The final game of the night. North Carolina up 19 with 14 minutes to go against VCU. The second largest comeback in a second half in NCAA tournament history. Nevada came back from down 22 against Cincinnati a couple of years ago. I mean, I don't know where we even start from a Tar Heel perspective here. I guess we probably should give Henry Vasar his flowers. He was just completely unstoppable in this game. 26 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. And yet in the overtime, North Carolina seemed to forget that he existed. I mean, that left side pick and roll between him and Derek Dixon was going to put that game away for them in those last 5 minutes. VCU really only stopped it one single time. It was that three where they left Jaron Stevenson wide open with 45 seconds to go, and Stevenson missed it, and North Carolina didn't go back to it one single time in that overtime.
Yeah, I think UNC's game was amazing in the fact that all eyes are going to be on the backcourt, particularly on defense, because how do you not stop Terrence Hill? And I understand that he's the leading scorer for VCU. He's an incredibly good ISO scorer, but you have high major athletes. You have guys who should be able to stop, to be able to at least slow him down. And considering that VCU got nothing from guys who are viewed as high major players like Barry Evans and J.J. Tracy and Tyra Ward giving you nothing, that you just have to stop one guy, and you couldn't. I mean, that's just a really bad look on Hubert Davis. And obviously, Seth Trimble was fine, and Derek Dixon, had a solid freshman year overall. But, Kyle Evans, Jonathan Powell, just getting nothing from them. Yes, no Caleb Wilson, but you lose that excuse when you're up 19 in the second half against an A10 team. As much respect as you and I will give VCU, you just can't do that when you are North Carolina. It's just not acceptable.
I can't believe I was kicking myself as this game was going on for forgetting this in the preview. I had the list at one point of all of these fast elite guards that have just demolished North Carolina this year, whether it was a Corey or Day-Day Ames or Juke Harris or Boopy Miller. All of these guys over and over again just crushed this Carolina perimeter D. And the only guy that they were actually good on was Bruce Thornton of Ohio State, where Trimble had his best defensive performance maybe of his life in that game. And Terrence Hill fits that same archetype of this just shifty 6'3 killer that they've just had no answer for. And yeah, it's completely insane that North Carolina doesn't have someone who can take out that type of player or at least just limit him to 15 points in this game instead of 34.
And I mean, look, anyone else, like Nick Lewis, the freshman for VCU, had a good game, but Brandon Jennings is not known as an elite offensive threat. Why not have him beat you? Why not? I mean, Lazar Djokovic, 15 points in 38 minutes, but
Most of
you
those
know,
were in the first 10 minutes, though, too.
yeah, like anyone else, but Terrence Hill, like it's that's just going to sting. And not to make this all about Hubert Davis, but I have never seen a coach who has found his way to either get completely off the hot seat, but also then get fully on it. Because he had the asterisk without Caleb Wilson. No one was going to get mad that they didn't, you know, make a run. I don't even think folks were going to be super mad if they lost to VCU straight up in a back and forth game. But to lose in this style of fashion is like the detractors are going to be all the way back on him. And I just don't know what the Tar Heels are ultimately going to do in the future because it really does feel like Hubert is just on like an extended 1 year rental deals with UNC because you can't fully fire him, but you can never say, oh yeah, he's 100% the guy. Even after what was a really good year with Wilson.
Vasar was unstoppable in this game, and that's the part that I just can't get over. And look, the last 10 minutes were completely different for North Carolina than what they dealt with in the first 30, where when VCU's offense was terrible early in this game, North Carolina was getting defensive rebounds. They were getting out and running. And whether it was true fast break points or not, they had such an advantage when they didn't have to go down and just set their half court offense. VCU's half court defense was good for basically the whole game. Their transition defense was pitiful. And as it got late in that game and VCU started making shots because Hill and Lewis, as you mentioned, both just ascended to a different level there to close out the game. And North Carolina got caught in that half court set over and over again. It was Dixon and Vasar who just had guys retreating. Djokovic had no idea how to cover that pick and roll. And that very last one in the final minute, they sat back. The help defender Michael Bell sat back and they said, screw it. Jaron Stevenson, if you are going to win this game, you can do it. And Stevenson had hit a big shot from the same exact spot about 5 minutes earlier. He missed it. And I think Carolina got spooked and didn't want to be stuck in that spot again. I would have given Vasar the ball every single time in overtime. I don't think VCU could stop him 2 times in a row.
No, and again, Djokovic had 4 fouls. And
So did
it,
Bell.
yeah, and look, if you just got either of them out the way, or the fact that you couldn't get any shots. I mean, scoring 3 points in the final 5 minutes. Neither team scored midway through, but the fact that you just couldn't get any of your offense in, it's just a really rough way to end the season. And considering that Tar Heels offense overall was pretty good, it was still fairly stable even after Wilson was gone because you knew you had Visar, you knew you had Trimble, and you was getting just enough from everyone else. But this game, it just the Rams just apparently cut everything out and when it mattered.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple other things here, more bugaboos. 1 of 13 from three for Trimble, Bogovac, and Powell combined. I mean, Bogovac getting benched in crunch time for Jonathan Powell, who shot 0 for 5 from deep in this game, was a pretty good indication of where it went. And then those huge missed free throws. They missed the front end of two 1-and-1s in the second half. You had Trimble missing that one late in the game when North Carolina was up by two. And then, of course, they get the offensive rebound and take the 5-second call coming out of the inbound. They missed a couple in overtime. I mean, it was just the little things. And on the positive, I will shout out. I know he shot 4 for 12 in this game, but I thought Derek Dixon was excellent. And going forward for North Carolina, it's reasons for optimism are Vasar 1, Dixon 2, and everything else a far, far distant number 3.
I mean, look, a lot of teams this offseason are looking to find out who their lead guard is and who their lead big man is. And at least if you're UNC, you know what you got out of those two. Hopefully, you're hoping to get, improved play from Bogovic and seeing what else you got from an incoming recruiting class. But, replacing Caleb Wilson is going to be next to impossible. And, they're going to have to do real well in the transfer portal to build around these guys because there is potential, but they've admittedly had some misses this year, and that ultimately is what hurt them, considering that they weren't at 100%.
Yeah, so a rough comeback loss for North Carolina. Anything else you want to add on any of these games today?
I would just say overall, just hasn't been the greatest opening start to tournament for the ACC, considering you got eight
Better than
bids.
last year, though.
Yeah, but eight bids. You're hoping that you can make a collective effort that to advance and your top team. Now I do think we have to wonder how much of a run Duke can make without Nabonga, because this was a scary performance against a team who literally played five guys from the MAC. What would they do against a TCU team who will have better athletes and will have more depth? So, if Duke's shaky, then who else are you going to rely on the ACC to make a run? But that's something that you're going to have to watch for. But at least they still have some teams left.
Yeah, well, and the way Shire was talking, I feel like Gungwa might be back for the TCU game. I think they held him out because it was Siena and they assumed they didn't need him. But yeah, it's been a rough start so far, 2-3 for the ACC to kick it off. We'll see what Virginia, Clemson, and Miami do on Friday. But Tristan, for all the listeners who don't know where to find you, and I'm looking at the numbers. They've definitely picked up a couple of new listeners this week, so thank you all for joining. If those new people are looking for you, where can they find your work?
Yeah, you can follow me mainly at Bustin' Brackets and Fansided, and you can also check me out at Hoops HQ and also the Field 68 Daily coming out each Friday, including this one.
Yep, everyone go give Tristan a follow. Thank you for joining me.